Hi, happy Hanukkah. Welcome to another episode of the Caroline Glick Show. I'm broadcasting today from the JNS studios in Jerusalem for the first time, so it's a work in progress. Please stick with us. It seems like every day there's another story about a Jew being harassed on a U.S. college campus. I just checked the headlines this morning and I saw two. There was a Wall Street Journal article about a Jewish student at Rutgers University in New Jersey who reported having to take back ways and secret passageways to get to class and to hide her Magen David necklace, her Star of David necklace, in order to avoid being harassed on her way to class every day. This is a par for the course. Another one was Colgate University in New York State. Students vandalized the campus menorah, and in their defense, they said, well, we were just drunk at the time. We didn't really mean it, or we were just drunk at the time. And, people scratch their heads and say, what are we supposed to do? And how do we handle the fact that anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students on college campuses throughout the United States doubled after Hamas's latest campaign against Israel, that was joined by Arab Israelis in May 2021? How are we supposed to handle this deluge of hate that Jews are victimized by basically every day from coast to coast in the United States? And, people have come up with a lot of different ways to do it. One of the ways that people think of doing it is to say, okay, listen, we're pro-peace. We support a Palestinian state. Professor Alan Dershowitz always says, we are pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. We're both. And birthright trips, for instance, have long avoided crossing the 1949 armistice lines. They don't take students, they don't take birthright travelers to Israel on these programs across and to see the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria because they're pro-peace, because they're pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. AIPAC brings senators and congressmen to Israel where they meet with Israelis and with Palestinians to show that they're really for both sides. And all the major Jewish organizations in the United States and Hillel International all support the so-called two-state solution. So here they are, pro-peace, pro-Palestinian, pro-Israeli, and yet levels of anti-Semitism on college campuses just continue to grow. To Jewish protestations of being pro-Israel and pro-Palestinians, the anti-Semites on college campuses say that they are Jewish imperialists, Jewish supremacists. They are Zionists. Zionism is racism. They are racist Zionism, Zionist colonialists. In other words, they don't care. The anti-Semites on campus really couldn't care less what the Jews are saying and how pro-peace they are. How do we understand this then? What is all of this about? Why are Jews being hounded as Zionists on college campuses? Well, we got a really good sense of the answer last month with the publication of a really important new study by the AMCHA Initiative, a very important initiative for fighting anti-Semitism on college campuses, founded by Tammy Rossman Benjamin, I think in 2002, in response to a rash of pogrom-like violence against Jewish students at the height of the Palestinian terror campaign against Israel that year. And what they do is they take a very, very close look at what's happening on campus. So Rossman Benjamin, together with her co-author, Layla Beckworth, came out with a new study last month that's called Antisemitism on Campus, the Assault on Jewish Identity. And what they found was hidden behind the 2,000 or so assaults on Jewish students that took place in the United States on college and university campuses last year, lies a much larger and much more insidious campaign. And that campaign is a frontal assault on Jewish identity itself on college campuses and then through college campuses into American society. And what their study showed was that there are really three components to the assault on Jewish identity in campus. The goal, by the way, of this assault is to end Jewish life on campus, Jewish communal life on campus. And we'll talk, and I'll get to exactly how this is done in a minute. But there are three groups who all participate in this campaign to wipe out Jewish identity on U.S. college campuses. The first one are the faculty members who support the boycott, divestiture, and sanctions campaigns against Israel, which again are campaigns not to cause Israel economic damage so much as to isolate and ostracize Jews who support Israel on campuses. They're really the direct victims of the BDS campaigns on campus. Israel, we don't feel it one way or another if BDS is massively popular or supported or powerful on Harvard University campus or University of Chicago campus or University of Michigan campus. Israelis don't feel it at all. The people who feel the brunt of the BDS campaign, of course, are American Jews and American Jewish students who are the ones that are directly targeted. So BDS pretends that it's about Israel, but really it's about Jews that are tangible, that are right there in your face on campus, whether they're faculty or students or visitors. So the first component, the first group that is advancing the assault on Jewish identity on campuses are the faculty members who support BDS. And what the study found was that if there are 5 or more faculty members who are part of the BDS campaign to demonize Israel and its American Jewish supporters on a particular campus, then the tendency to see these kinds of incidents of assaults on Jewish identity increases fourfold. The second component, the second group that's that's involved, engaged in wiping out, assaulting Jewish identity on U.S. college campuses are the Students for Justice in Palestine types. They're members of non-Jewish anti-Zionist organizations that promote an anti-Zionist, or a pro-BDS campaign to vilify and demonize Israel and its Jewish supporters on campus. So, their largest group, of course, is Students for Justice in Palestine, that has branches across America and is organized by Hamas supporters and was really the brainchild of Hamas supporters in Berkeley and in other places that was organized in a way as a Hamas front, according to a report by the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, I think in 2018 it came out. At any rate, so you have Students for Justice in Palestine and their campaigns. And then the third group that's engaged in this are Jewish anti-Zionist organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace. And Jewish organizations that participate in the anti-Zionist push, in the pro-BDS push, serve as fig leaves, legitimators of the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish operations being organized and pushed forward most openly and aggressively by the non-Jewish BDS organizations like Students for Justice in Palestine, and also by faculties that use their departments to push, to promote this agenda of destroying Jewish identity. So having identified the actors that are engaged, again, the faculty that support BDS, that are opposed to Israel, that advocate for anti-Zionism, for the demonization, delegitimization, and destruction of the Jewish state, are the first ones. The second ones are the anti-Israel BDS organizations that are not Jewish, and the third one are the Jewish organizations that are anti-Israel, pro-BDS, anti-Zionist. Okay, so those are the three groups who are participating, and then the question is, well, what do they do? What does it mean that you want to cancel, you want to assault Jewish identity on college campuses? Well, there are three components to that as well. The first component is redefining Judaism. And this is where we begin to enter into the rabbit hole in this Alice in Wonderland kind of universe that they're creating on campuses in relation to Jews. So the first concept of redefining Judaism involves asserting that Zionism, that is the attachment of Jews to the land of Israel, support for Israel on the part of Jews who live in the diaspora, and the right of the Jews to self-determination in our homeland, in the land of Israel, is a form of anti-Semitism. Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism. Why? Because under the newly defined Judaism that these people are advocating on behalf of and that are pushing as authentic Judaism, Zionism is actually not a part of Judaism. It's not authentic Judaism. And of course, the fact is that from time immemorial, Judaism has three legs: the Torah, the land of Israel, that is Zionism, and the nation of Israel. Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and Torat Yisrael have always been the three pillars of Zionism. So if you went to a Jew in Spain, if you went to a Jew in Germany, if you went to a Jew in Tunis, if you went to a Jew in South America, it doesn't matter. At any point in history over the past 2,500, 3,000 years, and you ask them how they felt about the land of Israel, they would say that their attachment to the land of Israel and to the people of Israel are strong, are really vital foundations of their Jewish identity. So what the anti-Zionists are saying, what the BDS people are saying, what the anti-Semites on campus are saying is that no. Millennia of Jewish history and identity across time and space, that Jews view Israel as a vital component of their Jewish identity, that's all a lie. Zionism is something that's been attached, that's exogenous to Jewish identity. It's sort of a colonialization of Jewish identity on the part of this nefarious group of people, fake Jews, who call themselves Zionists. And Zionism itself is a form of supremacy that's trying to dislocate authentic Judaism, and authentic Judaism has nothing to do with Zionism, with the land of Israel, or even with peoplehood of the Jewish nationhood and Jewish peoplehood. So in their redefined, invented Judaism, Zionism is an alien component that has nothing to do with actual Jews. So that's what they say. And then the people who are most important in pushing forward this agenda, of course, are the Jewish anti-Zionists, who say, oh, look, we don't have anything to do with Zionism. We're the authentic Jews. And the Jews who support Israel, that's 80% of American Jews, according to repeated, multi-year surveys, who say that attachment to Israel is a vital component to their Jewish identity, they're liars. And they're actually anti-Semites because they're trying to push this component, this alien concept of Zionism, on poor, unsuspecting Jews. So Jews are anti-Semites. Anti-Semites are philo-Semites. So this is the beginning of the created world that they invent to reinvent what it means to be Jewish. So Jewish identity now is anti-Zionism. Authentic Judaism is anti-Zionism. Then after they've done that, they denigrate any statement or any expression of Jewish identity that isn't part of their invented Judaism. So we see that Judaism, support for Israel, support for Jewish rights, all of these things are forms of racism and bigotry, Jewish supremacism, and a reason to harass and bully Jews. So Jews are denigrated on college campuses if they don't accept the invented concept of Judaism that's being pushed on them by these three groups: the faculty, the non-Jewish BDS organizations, and the Jewish BDS organizations. They're now being denigrated as racists, as white supremacists, as Jewish supremacists, as progressives. You can't be a progressive if you view the world through the traditional, through the authentic Jewish vantage point, because that's inauthentic Judaism. And so you're denigrated. And the third component of this, after redefining Judaism and and denigrating expressions of Judaism, is suppression. So suppression we saw most blatantly earlier this year when Berkeley Law School organizations announced a collective boycott of Zionists from speaking on college campuses, on the university campus, or speaking to law students. And this Zionist, it's not just me, Caroline Glick, God forbid, be invited to Berkeley to talk about Israel. It's a Jewish physicist talking about science and the law. Well, no, because he's Zionist, he's not allowed to talk about, physics or quantum mechanics or whatever, and the law, or computer scientists talking about high tech and the law. You can't have anybody who's actually supportive of Israel talking about anything, talking about, contracts. You can't be a speaker on any subject at Berkeley Law School if you support Israel's right to exist. And that's all it means to be a Zionist as far as they're concerned. So anybody who doesn't accept their view of authentic Judaism being anti-Judaism is a Zionist, and they are therefore banned from speaking at Berkeley. You have other examples in the AMCHA Initiative study that calls to boycott at University of Chicago professors and courses that they consider to be Zionist because they don't promote the anti-Zionist view that Israel has no right to exist. Obviously, attacking Jews trying to celebrate Israel Independence Day, or really anything Hanukkah that celebrates Jewish sovereignty and fight against tyranny. So these are the ways, and taken collectively, you see, that this is a sort of a whole spectrum, a full spectrum of assault on Jews. And the harassment that you see on college campuses every day is something that stems from this basic underlying campaign to wipe out Jewish identity. And then it works because if Jews complain to campus administrators, look, I'm being harassed, I can't go to class, I can't participate in the activities that I want to participate in, administrators say to them, yes, but being a Zionist is not being Jewish. You're not being discriminated because you're Jewish, because authentic Judaism is actually anti-Zionism, and therefore you don't deserve protection. And actually, by saying that your Zionism is a manifestation or an authentic expression of your Jewish identity, you're actually harassing the poor anti-Zionist Jews because they're the authentic Jews. And this happens over and over on college campuses. So students who are being harassed by these new Jews are being told that they themselves are the anti-Semites, because we've already discussed that Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism. And so if you're a Zionist, you're actually suppressing legitimate Jews who are anti-Zionists. And so this is sort of how it all goes, and you end up in a closed circle where Jews are denied all protection and constantly made more and more vulnerable to assault because they don't really have a right to be there in the first place as Jews, because again, their Judaism isn't authentic, and the real authentic Judaism is anti-Semitism. So that's what we see. And then the question becomes, okay, so how do you deal with something like this? How are Jews supposed to be able to, how should they respond? How should that young woman at Rutgers handle the situation? That she's being hounded? Well, you have to look to what the goal is. So the goal here is to intimidate and harass and scare Jews into non-participation, into walking away from the Jewish community, walking away from their Jewish identity, and just being quiet and not saying anything, not making waves, maybe studying something that has nothing to do with Jewish subjects and hoping that if you keep your head down far enough that they'll just leave you alone and let you finish your degree, and then you go on with your life. It's Jews denying themselves the right to celebrate their Jewish identity, or deepen their Jewish identity, or learn, or do anything as Jews. Go to synagogue, do anything. Celebrate Hanukkah. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go to that lecture by so-and-so because, he's a Zionist and it's going to be picketed and I'll be attacked and harassed if I go. So I'm just not going to go. And that's that. So that's what they want Jews to do. And then the only Jewish expression that you'll have on campus, Jewish expression, is the anti-Zionist Jewish expression, because they're the Jews who are allowed to speak. Those are the Jews who are allowed to have a voice. Those are the Jews who are legitimate. And the question is, before I go into what Jews should do about this, you have to understand that there's an extra and very important component to it. So this isn't just anti-Semitism, in terms of harassing Jews, putting them down. It's also a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool to promote anti-Semitism among progressives. Just think about it. What are they actually doing here? Right? One of the worst things of the legacy of the Holocaust, cognitive legacy of the Holocaust, is that over the years, it became very difficult for people to identify anti-Semitism absent the gas chambers, right? If you don't have Auschwitz, then it's not anti-Semitism. But over the millennia, most anti-Semitism that Jews have suffered from has not been the eradicationist kind of the Nazis. It hasn't been, to cart Jews away and annihilate them. It's been to persecute and humiliate them And so we saw, and to turn them into whatever you're not supposed to be. So the Jews are constantly, forever being made the enemy of the people. So in Christendom, Jews were Christ killers, and Jews had to be humiliated and kept down because that was the way to show, as St. Augustine wrote, that God had walked away from his covenant with them and that the covenant had been transferred to adherents to Christianity. And Jews should remain, but they have to remain weak and persecuted and humiliated and ashamed and hopeless. And so that was how Jews were treated. They were persecuted. They were murdered from time to time, but they were allowed to live and humiliated. The same, by the way, in Islam, where Jews were treated as dhimmi, along the same concept, that they were perpetually in a state of subjugation and humiliation, as proof that Islam was a true faith. Under communism, we saw it as well. From Karl Marx on, communists were saying, well, we are the communists and the Jews are capitalists and they're rootless cosmopolitans. And so Jews were castigated as the enemy of the good because they were the exact opposite of what the good was defined as being. And under the progressive regime that controls campus discourse, there are two kinds of people you're supposed to hate. There are the racists who belong to whatever group is considered to be an oppressor group, and there are, or sexual orientation group, but there are those, right? And then on the other hand, you have right-wingers, otherwise known as conservatives, otherwise known as fascists. And the thing with Jews is that in the progressive mindset, Jews are in both groups. Jews are white, they're Jewish supremacists, they're racists, and they're also fascist, Zio-Nazis, etc. So Jews belong to both of those groups. And then anti-Semitism is instrumental for mobilizing progressives to become anti-Semitic. So the anti-Zionism on campus, the redefinition of Judaism, the denigration of Judaism, the suppression of expressions of Judaism, all of these things are not only in order to persecute Jews, but also to mobilize progressives to hate Jews and to transform completely progressive America, and through progressive America, the United States as a whole, into an anti-Semitic country, where the plight of Jews on campus becomes the plight of Jews everywhere in the United States. And that's ultimately what we're seeing unfold on campus, and increasingly we're seeing expressions of that. We're seeing repeatedly actually on NBC, and comedians and Kanye West and all of them that are feeling more and more comfortable expressing denigration, reinvention, reconstitution, redefinition of what it means to be a Jew, and ultimately suppression of expressions of Judaism.